Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be diving into something I think is super cool. AI that can create video games.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
It really is. So the paper we're looking at is called GameFactory, Creating New Games with Generative Interactive Videos. And it's basically like, imagine you could just think up a game and then boom, the AI makes it for you.
No coding required.
Exactly. That's the dream, right? So we're going to break down how this Game Factory actually works, what makes it so special, and what it could mean, for the future of gaming and maybe even beyond that. So first things first, building a game from scratch is hard.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly complex, it's time-consuming, it takes specialized skills. And a lot of the AI game generators that we've seen so far have mostly just been remixing,
Yeah.
stuff that's already out there.
Right, like tweaking existing games.
Right. But Game Factory seems to be aiming for something, way bigger.
Yeah. Way more ambitious. Okay, so walk me through this a little bit. How does it actually work? Where do you even begin with something like this?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles, I think, in game development is just the sheer amount of work that goes into creating all the, all the assets, all the mechanics. So what Game Factory does is it actually uses these really powerful pre-trained video models, and they've basically learned from like a massive amount of video data.
It's like feeding it a visual encyclopedia of the entire world.
Yeah, it's like giving it like this massive visual library, and so it can generate, these very diverse and dynamic scenes.
Okay, so the AI has like absorbed all this visual information, but then how does it know how to make that interactive? That's the real challenge.
Exactly. That's where the real magic happens, and that's where they introduce this thing called an action control module, and that's where Minecraft comes into the picture.
Minecraft. Okay, I mean, I love Minecraft, but it seems like a pretty basic choice, for training, like
Yeah.
this cutting edge AI.
It might seem a little counterintuitive, but Minecraft offers some really unique advantages.
Okay, I'm listening.
So first of all, just generating data from Minecraft is super easy and efficient. So they can basically have the AI play the game automatically, and they get tons and tons of action data that is completely unbiased.
Ah,
So you avoid, the quirks and the weird predictable patterns that you'd see in like a human player.
So it's getting this like pure experience of the game, not skewed by like human habits.
Exactly. It's just this really clean data set, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, Minecraft offers this incredible variety of scenes, right? Each with their own kind of unique physics and rules.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Like, jumping in a cave versus jumping in a forest, it's going to feel different.
Completely different, right? And the AI needs to understand those nuances if it's going to create, believable and diverse games.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But then doesn't training on Minecraft mean that it's always going to be creating like blocky pixelated worlds? Like, wouldn't it have this kind of style bias?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a challenge that the researchers, tackle head on. They actually use this very clever multi-phase training strategy. And what it does is it essentially separates learning game style from learning action control.
Okay, so it's kind of like teaching the AI about actions as a concept first,
Exactly. Separate from any particular visual style.
detached from any specific look.
Exactly. And that allows it to then, apply that knowledge to any world you can imagine, whether it's a realistic forest or a futuristic city.
That's super cool. Okay, so we've got the AI. It's learned all these visuals. It's starting to understand actions. But how does this action control module actually work? The paper mentions it handles both continuous actions like mouse movements and discrete actions like pressing keys. How does it do all of that?
So you're going to love how Game Factory adapts to different types of actions. It's like it's got a toolbox with specific tools for each job, to make sure the gameplay is really smooth and responsive.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about these tools.
So for continuous actions, think about like moving a mouse to control a camera, right? It's all about magnitude. Like the further you move the mouse, the more the camera turns.
Right.
So for that, Game Factory uses a method called concatenation.
Concatenation. Big word.
It is a big word. It basically means it combines that action information directly with the visual data, right? So that numerical relationship is preserved.
So it's like directly feeding that mouse movement into like the camera's instructions.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But then discrete actions, like pressing a key to jump, are different. Those are more like signals or categories, right? It's not about how hard you press the key, but just the fact that you pressed it.
Right. It's either you jump or you don't.
Exactly. So for that, Game Factory uses a method called cross-attention.
Okay, another big word.
Another big word, but basically think of it as finding the relationship between that signal and the scene. Like jump means go up.
That's really elegant. It's like the researchers had to really think about the nature of each action to design the right control mechanism. It's impressive. But there's still this issue of creating continuous gameplay, right? Most AI can only generate like short clips, not a whole game.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest challenges, and that's where Game Factory's use of something called autoregressive generation comes in.
Hmm.
So think about it like writing a story, but for video games.
Yeah, okay.
So the AI is predicting multiple frames at once based on, what it's already outputted.
So it's building the game as it goes, like reacting to the actions and changes in the game world.
Exactly. So that allows for essentially unlimited length videos, and that opens up the possibility of truly open-ended gameplay.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown, but hold on, it gets even cooler. The paper shows the AI generating games in all sorts of environments, like a cherry blossom forest, a racing game. It's wild.
That's the beauty of scene generalization. The AI isn't limited to the style of its training data. It takes that action control knowledge and can apply it to any visual world.
So we're not just talking about slightly different Minecraft clones, but
Yeah.
literally any conceivable world. It's incredible. But this action control module, it seems like a pretty complex piece of engineering. Can we unpack it a little bit more? I'm curious about this thing called a sliding window. What is that all about?
So think of the sliding window as a really clever trick to make sure that the actions in the game feel realistic, even though
Hmm.
we're dealing with this video data, right? Because the AI is working with compressed video.
Right.
The timing of actions might not perfectly line up with the visual frames.
Ah, okay.
So by grouping actions together, the AI can understand that a single key press, like jumping, can have effects that last for multiple
So it's
frames.
like giving the AI a short-term memory for action, so it can predict how the game world's going to change over time,
Yeah,
even if those changes happen kind of gradually.
exactly. Exactly. And it also helps to account for delayed effects, where an action doesn't have like an immediate impact.
Like pressing the gas pedal in a car.
Exactly. It takes time to speed up.
Yeah.
So the sliding window helps the AI learn those relationships, between input and output. And that makes the gameplay feel much more realistic and responsive.
Wow. It's amazing how much thought has gone into designing this action control module.
Mm.
It's clearly a lot more than just throwing some AI at a problem.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the bigger implications of this technology, right? We've been talking about gaming, but the paper hints at applications way beyond that.
Absolutely. This isn't just about fun and games. I mean, think about using this technology to create super realistic driving simulations to train self-driving cars.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Right. So you can expose the AI to basically an infinite number of scenarios, make them safer and more reliable before they ever hit the road.
So it's like a super-powered training ground for AI, not just in the context of games, but like out there in the real world.
That's
That's incredible.
And that's just the beginning. I mean, think about robotics, creating virtual worlds where robots can learn and practice complex tasks like cleaning houses or performing surgery, all within this safe and controlled environment.
Oh, wow. Like training robots in the Matrix before they're unleashed on the real world.
Exactly. It's super exciting stuff. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's zoom back in on the Game Factory paper itself.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
There are a few key details and insights there that are definitely worth highlighting. And one thing that stood out to me is how seamlessly the AI was able to transfer its understanding of what they call yaw control, basically looking left and right,
Okay.
to steering a car in a racing game. And it sparked this kind of interesting question in my mind.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What kind of question?
Well, it got me thinking, could there be like a more fundamental set of actions, like a kind of universal action grammar that underlies all interactive experiences?
Whoa. That's a big idea. Yeah. So you're saying that the same principles that govern how we like move and interact in a video game
Hmm.
might also apply to how we navigate the real world, how we use tools, even how we communicate with each other.
It's a pretty fascinating possibility. And if Game Factory or, a future version of this technology could crack that code, it could revolutionize way more than just entertainment.
Yeah. It could unlock a whole new level of understanding about how intelligence works, both, artificial and natural. That's a pretty profound thought.
It is. But Before we get too lost in the philosophical weeds, let's ground ourselves back in the reality of Game Factory's current, capabilities and limitations. There's still some pretty significant challenges to overcome.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of hurdles are the researchers grappling with right now?
Well, for one, the current action control module is really focused on controlling the player's perspective and basic actions.
It's like playing a game where you can move around and interact with the world, but you can't like pick up objects or solve puzzles or have, complex dialogue.
Exactly. So they're already exploring ways to expand the action control module to handle those more complex interactions. But it's a very challenging problem. It requires the AI to have like a much deeper understanding of the game world and how objects behave.
Right, right. So what about things like game mechanics and level design? Can the AI like create those from scratch too?
That's a great question, and that's an area where I think human creativity still plays a very crucial role. Right now, Game Factory is focused on generating that visual world and those basic interactions, but designing compelling game mechanics, levels, that requires a whole other layer of like sophistication and ingenuity.
So it's like having a master chef who can prepare any ingredient you give them, but you still need a recipe developer to create a delicious and balanced meal.
That's a perfect analogy. Game Factory gives developers these incredible tools, these building blocks, but it's still up to human designers to like assemble those elements into a truly engaging and meaningful experience.
Right, right. So it's like this powerful reminder that AI is a tool, right? It's
Mhm.
not a replacement for human creativity and ingenuity. But while we're talking about, the future of Game Factory, what are some of the other, challenges that the researchers are excited to tackle?
One of the big areas they're focused on is expanding the AI's ability to handle more complex actions. Think about games where you can manipulate objects, interact with characters, or solve, intricate puzzles.
Right, right.
That requires a whole new level of understanding of the game world and how actions affect it.
It's like the difference between knowing how to move a chess piece and knowing how to, like, develop a winning strategy.
Exactly. And to achieve that level of strategic thinking, the AI also needs what's called long context memory.
Okay, now you've lost me.
Oh, yeah.
What does memory have to do with generating video games?
Okay, so think about a game where your actions have consequences that unfold over a long period of time. So maybe you make a decision early on that affects the storyline hours later. The AI needs to remember what happened in the past to make sense of what's happening now and to predict what might happen in the future.
Ah, I see. So it needs that memory to understand the context of the game and make decisions that, align with the overall narrative and gameplay.
Exactly. And that is incredible. Imagine games with, complex narratives, branching storylines, consequences that like ripple through the game world.
It would be like playing a game that's constantly evolving, adapting to your choices, and surprising you with new challenges and possibilities.
And it's not just about entertainment. Imagine applying those same principles to other domains, like creating personalized learning environments that track a student's progress over time and adapt to their individual needs. Or imagine training robots in these incredibly complex and dynamic virtual worlds where they can learn and adapt over, extended periods.
The potential is like truly mind-blowing. But in all this talk about, AI and algorithms, it's important to remember the human element, right?
Couldn't agree more. Like I said earlier, Game Factory is a tool. It's a powerful tool, yes. But ultimately, it's up to humans to decide how to use it.
Right, right. It's not about AI replacing human creativity, but like augmenting it, expanding it, giving us new ways to express ourselves and explore our imaginations.
Precisely. Imagine a world where anyone can be a game designer, a storyteller, a world builder. Game Factory could democratize creativity, give everyone the power to bring their ideas to life.
It would be like giving everyone a paintbrush and a blank canvas, but instead of painting on a physical surface, they're painting worlds and experiences, like
Mm.
within this virtual space.
What a beautiful way to put it. And it's not just about entertainment. Imagine scientists using Game Factory to simulate complex systems, architects designing buildings, educators creating personalized learning experiences, filmmakers crafting interactive stories.
The possibilities seem truly endless.
Yeah.
It's inspiring and a little bit daunting at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see where this technology leads and how it will shape the future of, creativity and innovation.
As am I. It's a fascinating journey, and we're only just getting started.
All right, so we're back and ready to go even deeper into this Game Factory rabbit hole. Before we took a little break, we were talking about, this technology maybe going beyond just gaming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, way
I
beyond.
want to hear more.
Well, let's start with education. right? Imagine interactive textbooks that adapt to, each student's learning style, creating like these personalized learning experiences. We talk about gamification in education a lot, but this takes it to a whole new level.
So instead of just like adding game-like elements to, traditional lessons, we're talking about creating like truly immersive and adaptive learning environments.
Exactly. And think about virtual labs, right? Where students can experiment with scientific concepts without any real world
Oh
risks.
yeah, that's a good point.
So, like, imagine a chemistry lab where you can mix volatile chemicals without the fear of explosions. Or a physics simulation where you can, like, test the laws of gravity without dropping anything breakable.
It'd be like having a personal tutor and a fully equipped laboratory all at your fingertips. It's amazing to think about how Game Factory could transform education. But I'm curious about something. We talked earlier about how the AI uses this like sliding window to group actions together. Could you just walk me through like why that's so important for creating a realistic gameplay experience?
Absolutely. So remember, the AI is working with this compressed video data. So the timing of actions might not perfectly align with the visual frames.
Wow, okay.
So the sliding window lets the AI understand that a single key press, like jumping, can have effects that last for multiple frames.
So it's like giving it that short-term memory for actions,
Mhm.
allowing it to kind of predict how the game world will change over time, even if those changes are gradual.
That's a great way to put it. And the sliding window also helps account for, delayed effects,
Yeah.
where an action doesn't have an immediate impact.
Right.
Like imagine pressing the accelerator in a car, right? It takes time to speed up.
Of course, yeah.
So that sliding window lets the AI learn those relationships between input and output, right?
Right.
And that makes the gameplay feel much more realistic and responsive.
It makes so much sense. Without that, temporal awareness, the game would feel really clunky and unresponsive.
Yeah.
So it's impressive how much the researchers have considered all those nuances of player interaction.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a second and talk about the future of Game Factory. What are some of the limitations here? I mean, this all sounds almost too good to be true.
Yeah, it's important to remember that Game Factory is still, in its early stages of development.
Right.
There's a lot more work to be done. For example, the current system is primarily focused on controlling that player's perspective and basic actions.
So it's like playing a game where you can move around and interact with the world, but you can't like pick up objects or solve puzzles or like engage in complex dialogue.
Exactly. And the researchers are working on expanding that action control module to handle those more complex interactions. But, it's a big challenge. It requires the AI to have a much deeper understanding of the game world and how, objects behave.
And what about things like game mechanics and level design? Can the AI create those from scratch too?
That's a great question. And that's an area where human creativity still plays a very crucial role. Right now, Game Factory is focusing on generating the visual world, the basic interactions, but designing compelling game mechanics levels, I mean, that requires a whole other layer of sophistication and ingenuity.
So it's like having a master chef who can prepare any ingredient you give them, but you still need that recipe developer to create like a delicious and balanced meal.
A perfect analogy. So Game Factory is giving these developers these incredible tools and building blocks, but it's still up to the human designers to assemble those elements into, a truly engaging and meaningful experience.
Right, right. It's a powerful reminder that AI is a tool, not a replacement for human creativity. But while we're on the topic of the future, what are some of the other challenges that the researchers are like excited to tackle?
Well, one of the big ones is, like I said, expanding the AI's ability to handle those more complex actions. Think about games where you can manipulate objects, you interact with characters, solve intricate puzzles.
Right, right.
That requires a whole new level of understanding of, the game world and how actions affect it.
It's like the difference between, knowing how to move a chess piece and knowing how to develop like a winning strategy.
Exactly. And to achieve that level of, strategic thinking, the AI also needs what's called long context memory.
Okay, now you've lost me again. What does memory have to do with generating video games?
All right, so think about a game where your actions have consequences that unfold over, a long period of time.
Okay, yeah.
You make a decision early on that affects the storyline hours later. Well, the AI needs to remember what happened in the past to make sense of what's happening now and to predict what might happen in the future.
Ah, I see. So it needs that memory to understand the context of the game, make decisions that align with, the overall narrative and gameplay.
Precisely. And that's incredibly difficult for current AI systems. They're really good at those, short-term predictions, but they struggle with those long-range dependencies.
It's like the AI has a short attention span. Like,
Yeah.
it remembers what happened a few seconds ago, but forgets what happened a few minutes ago, let alone hours ago.
That's a fun way to think about it. But the researchers are, exploring ways to overcome this. They're looking at techniques from the field of natural language processing,
Okay.
where AI has made huge strides in understanding long sequences of text.
Right, right.
So they're hoping to kind of adapt those techniques to give GameFactory a better long-term memory.
So they're trying to give it like a memory boost.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. And if they succeed, it could unlock a whole new genre of, AI-generated games.
Wow.
Imagine games with complex narratives, branching storylines, consequences that ripple through the game world.
It'd be like playing a game that's constantly evolving, adapting to your choices, and surprising you with, new challenges and possibilities.
And it's not just about entertainment. Imagine applying these same principles to other domains, like creating personalized learning environments that, track a student's progress over time, adapt to their individual needs. Or imagine training robots in these incredibly complex and dynamic virtual worlds where they can, learn and adapt over extended periods.
The potential is truly mind-blowing. But in all this talk about AI and algorithms, you know, it's important to remember the human element.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said earlier, Game Factory is a tool, right? Powerful tool, yes, but it's up to humans to decide how to use it.
It's not about AI replacing human creativity, but augmenting it, expanding it, giving us new ways to, express ourselves and explore our imaginations.
Precisely. Imagine a world where anyone can be a game designer, a storyteller, a world builder. Game Factory could democratize creativity, giving everyone the power to, bring their ideas to life.
It would be like giving everyone a paintbrush and a blank canvas. But instead of painting on a physical surface, they're painting worlds and experiences, within this virtual space.
What a beautiful way to put it. And it's not just about entertainment. Imagine, scientists using Game Factory to simulate complex systems, architects designing buildings, educators creating personalized learning experiences, filmmakers crafting interactive stories. I mean, the possibilities seem truly endless.
It is inspiring and a little bit daunting at the same time. But I'm excited to see where this technology leads and how it will shape the future of, creativity and innovation.
As am I. It's a fascinating journey, and we're only just getting started.
Well, we've really covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Game Factory. From like the technical nitty-gritty to these mind-blowing potential applications. It seems like this technology could seriously change the world.
Oh, it really could. It's a total game changer.
Okay, I see what you did there. But seriously, this whole conversation has left me feeling incredibly excited and maybe a little bit overwhelmed at the same time.
It's a lot to take in, right?
It really is. It's like we've opened this door to like a whole new universe of possibilities, and it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around it all.
It is. It's kind of like that feeling you get when you first look through a telescope and realize just how vast the universe really is. There's a sense of wonder and also a little bit of awe at the sheer scale of it all.
Exactly. And speaking of vastness, one of the things that keeps coming back to me is this idea of a universal action grammar that you mentioned
Oh,
earlier.
yeah.
This idea that there might be like fundamental principles of interaction
Hmm.
that apply, across all domains, from video games to the real world. It's just mind-boggling.
It really is a pretty fascinating possibility. Imagine if we could, crack the code of those fundamental building blocks of interaction.
Yeah.
It could totally revolutionize how we design, well, everything. Robots, educational systems, even the way we understand intelligence itself.
It would be like discovering, a new law of physics, but for intelligence itself, like
Hmm.
a grand unified theory of how we interact with the world, both, physically and virtually. It's a lot to think about.
It is. It's a big idea, but I think it's worth exploring. I mean, after all, Game Factory itself provides some pretty compelling evidence to support this idea, right?
Oh, so.
Well, the fact that the AI was able to transfer its knowledge of, yaw control, basically looking left and right, to steering a car in a racing game, it suggests that there might be these deeper connections between seemingly different actions.
So, like, it's almost like the AI is learning this core set of principles that it can then apply to any situation, regardless of the specific context. Kind of like how, humans can learn to ride a bike and then use those same balancing skills to, like, snowboard or surf.
Exactly. And if that's the case, then the potential for Game Factory and, similar technologies goes way beyond simply creating new forms of entertainment. It could lead to like a much deeper understanding of how we learn, how we adapt, how we interact with the world around us.
This deep dive has really I don't know, it shifted my thinking about the role of AI in our lives. It's not just about, automating tasks or making things more efficient, but really augmenting human creativity, opening up these new avenues for exploration, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
I totally agree. And I think Game Factory is like this shining example of how AI can be a force for good in the world. It's a tool that can empower us to create, to learn, to connect with each other in, new and meaningful ways.
Well, on that inspiring note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Game Factory. It's been an incredible journey, and I have a feeling this is just the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, and I encourage all our listeners to, stay curious, keep exploring, let your imaginations run wild. Who knows what incredible creations are waiting for us in the future?
Can't wait to find out.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration into the world of AI.